Ren Xiaosu had gone to sleep. After standing guard in the wilderness for so long, he had finally managed to catch a sparrow. Although he spent most of the time lying motionless on the ground, anyone who knew the ropes would understand that lying still while remaining alert was the most draining. Before he went to sleep, he had instructed Yan Luyuan, stay away from those people. They must be aware of the dangers of the border mountains. Most people would choose to avoid the mountains, but they insist on passing through. My intuition tells me that there's more to this than meets the eye. Okay, Yan Luyuan obediently nodded. Got it. The pairing of Ren Xiaosu and Yan Luyuan was indeed strange. A few years ago, they didn't even know each other. Later, Ren Xiaosu decided to protect the then young Yan Luyuan, partly because he accidentally discovered Yan Liuyuan's secret, and partly because he needed someone to keep watch during the night due to his chronic headaches. At the beginning, Ren Xiaosu made it clear to Yan Luyuan that they were using each other. However, after these years, it was hard to tell whether it was out of affection or necessity. Yan Luyuan was always clever outside, but he acted like an obedient child only around Ren Xiaosu. Sometimes Yan Luyuan would say that his life was saved by Ren Xiaosu at the cost of his own, but Ren Xiaosu never acknowledged this. Now, Ren Xiaosu was about to explore what had happened in his brain. He had deliberately waited for a long time tonight, hoping to see if the illness that had troubled him would appear again. But the chaotic fog did not reappear. It was as if the palace had always been hidden in the chaotic fog of his mind, and the black fog had finally dissipated. Ren Xiaosu wanted to see what was inside this palace. Yan Luyuan glanced at Ren Xiaosu lying next to him, quietly picked up the bone knife, and sat at the entrance of the hut. The hut only had a thick curtain hanging in the doorway. Now that it was autumn, it was a bit cold. Just then, the rain stopped. Footsteps could be heard from outside the hut. The sound of boots stepping on the muddy road after the rain had a unique slippery feeling. The curtain was lifted slightly. But before the person outside could lift the curtain completely, Yan Liuyuan's bone knife was already against the person's throat. It was a beautiful face. A beautiful woman was standing outside. Yan Luyuan frowned. The visitor was not a stranger. She usually lived not far away. The woman smiled. Luyuan, you're still awake. Where's Xiaosu? I heard he's back. Xiaoyu, he's already asleep. Yan Luyuan smiled. If you have something to say, you can tell me. Xiaoyu looked a bit unnatural. He didn't get hurt this time, did he? He got a small peck from a sparrow. But Xiaoyu, you don't have to worry about my brother so much. After all, you're 8 years older than him. Yan Luyuan, who had matured beyond his years when dealing with outsiders after Ren Xiaosu fell asleep, said. Regardless of whether the person he was dealing with was a stranger or what they said, the bone knife in his hand never left Xiaoyu's neck. Xiaoyu took out a cigarette and a lighter from her bag. The cigarette was a roll-up, a kind only distributed in industries belonging to refuge barriers like coal mines and power plants. Many strong laborers worked not only for money and food but also for this cigarette. A day's work was rewarded with a cigarette. In the evening after work, you could often see a large group of people puffing away. Ren Xiaosu once told Yan Luyuan that these cigarettes might contain more addictive substances. Now, the cigarette that Xiaoyu was smoking was clearly not from her work. Xiaoyu lit the cigarette and took a couple of puffs, seemingly contemplating something. You're a smart kid, I consider you guys as my little brothers. Oh, Yan Luyuan suddenly asked, do you have a cold? Xiaoyu was taken aback. Yeah, can you tell from my hoarse voice? No, Yan Luyuan shook his head and smiled. I noticed when you were smoking that only one nostril was exhaling smoke. Xiaoyu, for some reason, Xiaoyu always felt that Yan Luyuan didn't like her very much. Well, I'll go back first, Xiaoyu said. Tell your brother when he wakes up that I came by. Sure, Yan Luyuan smiled, I'll tell him. After Xiaoyu left, Ren Xiaosu's voice suddenly sounded behind Yan Luyuan. In the future, don't always tease Xiaoyu. She has a hard life too. Brother, she's not clean, Yan Luyuan said, and she's only close to you because you always bring back game. Who is clean? Ren Xiaosu calmly said, in this world, those who want to survive can't stay clean. It's all forced by life. Just keep your distance and don't tease her. In this town, a single woman who was too clean couldn't survive. Ren Xiaosu thought for a moment and said, she never said she liked me. And, are you sure she's close to me because I can hunt? Could it be because of my handsome looks? Brother, everyone's face is almost the same because we haven't washed for months. Yan Luyuan looked at Ren Xiaosu speechlessly. Brother, weren't you sleeping? Why are you still awake? I'm thinking about something, Ren Xiaosu simply explained. Ren Xiaosu wasn't sleeping because he was exploring the secrets of the palace. Inside the circular palace, the walls were filled with old wooden cabinets, like a massive display room. However, the display shelves were shrouded in black fog, making it impossible to see what was inside. In the middle of the hall was only a table, on which was an antiquated brass typewriter, the kind that clacked when you typed. This typewriter only had 24 brass keys, each engraved with a character: public, righteous, sincere, real, friendly, kind, rich, strong. It was overwhelmingly positive. However, it seemed like the typewriter was stuffed with endless parchment. And without anyone hitting the brass keys, they would move on their own, typing 2 lines of small characters that appeared in the afternoon. Task: give the game to others. Task completed, reward basic skill learning chart, can learn others' abilities. He couldn't tell if this was his imagination or something else. It was said that some people could create memory palaces, and even recreate a fantasy universe based on their mental willpower within the memory palace, but Ren Xiaosu felt that his palace seemed a bit different from the description of a memory palace, but why would it ask him to give his game to others? Was this typewriter trying to make him a good person? In this world where even mentioning morality is a luxury, be a good person? No way. At that time, his consciousness stood in the center of the vast palace, looking around at the display cabinets. The cabinets seemed to float with items, but they were shrouded in darkness, and the dark fog prevented Ren Xiaosu from seeing clearly what the floating items were. These were the powers that he couldn't probe at the moment. To find out if the palace really existed, Ren Xiaosu needed to prove it with his actions.